All right, what's up, family? It's your boy John Bacon from the Bacon Bits Podcast. Thank you so much for your support, likes, and ratings. Please don't just listen, but rate me, follow me, and subscribe. This is an amazing way to offer free support. My beautiful queen and I have some books that we have written for your growth.
So the first book we have is a workbook, actually. It's called Healthy Relationships, and this is a workbook through the lens of faith. Because what makes a relationship healthy or unhealthy? So this workbook is designed, it's a 12-week, it's a biblically grounded course, and every week has a few different principles. So if some of our principles, some of our topics that we're covering are respect, cultivating security. And this is not just between a husband and wife. This is between parents, between siblings, between friends, between your bosses, employers. So it's really important, and everyone deserves a healthy relationship.
And also we have The Balanced Life by John Bacon. It covers how to be prosperous in your finances, relationships, your health, your mind, and your spirit. And we also have
The Unraveling, a creative healing journal, pinings, poems, prayers, and ponderings of my precarious life. I've had a testimony of I've had 2 brain tumors and 2 brain surgeries, and I'm super grateful, but I'm still grieving the process of healing. And this is part of the process. In this book, you have devotionals, you have prayers, and you have some ponderings. And in between these pages, there's a space for you to also be prompted to paint and to create your own, or maybe you want to write something in these books. This is part of your creative healing journal that we get to walk through together.
And you guys can just head over to Kingdom Servants First. Kingdom Servants, the number 1, st.com. And you can purchase all 3 of these books. Thank you for your support, your love, and your contributions. God bless. So my baby was like, babe, I still want to do this camping thing. And I was like, babe, okay, we gonna do it. But it's going to have to be, we're going to have to make it look a whole lot different than I'm used to being, because your boy ain't trying to be outside with all them bugs and mosquitoes and all that. And I'm like, oh, babe. Welcome, family, to the Bacon Bits Podcast, where we desire for you to take the bits of information and immediately apply them to your life for success. The ground rules for our podcast is that it will always be encouraging, uplifting, and informative. The areas of life that we will be talking about on the Bacon Bits Podcast is dealing with having a balanced life, spiritually, mentally, physically, relational, and financial. I need you to say it now. Say valuable information applied equals success. And we are back with another wonderful episode on healthy relationships with my beautiful, gorgeous, smart, intelligent, oh my God, just my everything, my beautiful wife, Diana Acosta-Bacon. How you doing, babe?
I'm doing fantastic, babe. Glad to be back.
Sweet. So what we're going to be talking about today on the podcast is healthy compromises in relationships. To compromise is to make a deal between different parties where each party gives part of their demands. We never compromise God's words, values, or our faith. But some things in life will require compromise. Ooh, you mean to tell me I can't get my way all the time? I gotta compromise with other people? Babe, what are you asking of me? Come on now.
Well, let's be real. You get your way 90% of the time. So.
Seems like yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we get 90% both ways, babe. Mm-hmm.
I think part of the compromise question, first of all, I think there's a negative, just kind of a negative feel about that word, compromise, and it doesn't have to be negative. Like, we can both win. Mm-hmm. And if it's first of all, it's not even a competition. It's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's about how can we maintain a healthy relationship.
Yes.
Again, with whomever we're talking about, like with the compromise. But we've seen so many negative compromises. Mm-hmm. And I think part of learning healthy compromises in our relationships across the board is first recognizing some of the really bad and negative and detrimental and devastating and destructive compromises we've made or allowed in our current or in our past relationships.
Yeah.
Because let's be real, maybe you're in one right now that's just not working for you, but you're sucking it up, or vice versa, where you're feeling like this underlying distension towards someone, dissension, this underlying like just it's not healthy. If you're having to suck it up or someone else is having to suck it up, that's not a healthy compromise. But we first have to recognize ways that we've made unhealthy, unwise compromises, whether it is in the past and we can recognize it now, or whether we're in it now and maybe we got to figure out a way out.
Yeah, because I think working at a drug and alcohol facility, I think there's a lot of compromise when it comes to relationships, because a lot of the people don't know themselves and they are so desperately dependent on somebody else being in a relationship with that they'll compromise their sanity just because they have this codependency to want to be in a relationship so bad. So they're literally knocking down, destroying, erasing every bit of their own values, their beliefs, in order to be in a relationship, because they don't want to be single. And I think that's a terrible thing that we've placed on society is what's wrong with being single and satisfied instead of being married. And when I say married, you don't necessarily have to be through the courts or some ceremony, but to be in a relationship. So being married and miserable instead of being single and satisfied, because you're willing to compromise all of your own standards and beliefs and what you stand for just so you can be in a relationship. I think that's the most terrible thing that you could ever do, because you're not even being true to yourself. You're compromising everything for this other person that, first of all, more than likely didn't ask you to do it. But then secondly, you're compromising your beliefs to yourself to be in this relationship. I think that is one of the most terrible things you could ever do.
I think that when it goes, again, we always go back to our very first topic on the workbook is our identity. Mm-hmm. When we don't understand our value, when we don't understand how loved we truly are and how important we are, when we don't even care for our own well-being, we are codependent and feel like we need to be in a relationship to find value in other people, to find value in ourselves, for others to find value in us. Mm-hmm. And even as we get older, we all want to be valued, but we first have to find value in ourselves. People are not responsible for our happiness. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to find joy and contentment within ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's really how can we cultivate? We talked about that last time. How can we cultivate commitment? Mm-hmm. But first to ourselves, and recognizing we need to be whole and well before we can find other relationships. And again, this isn't just a relationship, but this is with our children, with our siblings, with our bosses. This is with everybody. So I think we first must recognize all the ways that we've made and compromised in the past that are negative and didn't work out, and maybe led to other more destructive things in our past. But until we recognize them, we cannot stop them, so we don't repeat them. And that's crucial.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times we don't even think about a lot of the compromises that we make, because if, say for instance, financially, I know I want to have a savings account. I want to save a certain amount. But how many of us have compromised our today for our tomorrow? How many people have bought things on credit cards, compromising your today for tomorrow? So I think that's a big one. I have to be careful of, because I want to stay somewhat healthy and fit, for the rest of my life. I have a thing that I try to, notice I'm emphasizing trying. And anytime you say trying, you almost lying when you say it. I try to not eat after 8 o'clock at night. I try to. But then, that popcorn and the pretzels and the Doritos and the soda and ice cream be calling my name at 8 o'clock. And usually it's at 8:01 they start calling. And so I'll compromise, my future health for right now, gratification of this food that I want to eat right now. So I have to be very careful of compromising that. How many people have compromised relationships of you're staying in a relationship that is no good for you, and not realizing that you're compromising that future person that you're supposed to be in a relationship with the compromise of being in a relationship right now. So we compromise in so many different ways, and that's just a couple of examples of how we compromise.
Ice cream loves me, and I cannot deny. So my compromise is I just use a smaller bowl if it's late at night. I just use even if it's a little measuring cup, you just get a little, and that kind of helps you. But truth be told, I usually just grab a spoon and the half gallon and sit at the table. But you can compromise in that way in saying I'm going to take 3 bites rather than a full 2 cups of, there's compromises, because when you fail to honor your own boundaries, then we tend to narrate some negative thinking, and that kind of stinking thinking isn't beneficial to us in any capacity or form. And then we start beating ourselves up, and we start saying, well, I did that, I might as well just it's blown. No, it's not. You just start again, and two minutes later, once you swallow that, it's done. Next, you start again. It's okay to not beat ourselves up, because boy, we are phenomenal at beating ourselves up and blaming ourselves for a lot of things.
So in some of the areas that we compromise, can we think of areas of ungodly compromises? And that's always something that you want to catch as soon as possible, because when I say it's so easy to compromise, I'm talking about, man, every day you are battling. Are you going to compromise your word to yourself? And I think I emphasize a lot to that, because I always want to make sure that if you can line your life up where you're not compromising in any area of your life, and you're being true to yourself, it's so much more easier to be true to everybody else. But you have to, first of all, make sure that you're not continually compromising. And compromise is not always bad. So we're gonna talk about that. Defining what is some good compromises. But also we have to make sure we define godly boundaries. Being prepared to defend and teach, and not argue what and why we will not compromise, because in the spiritual aspect, we're supposed to just love everybody, and understanding that, we are supposed to love everybody, but that don't mean we got to compromise our values and our beliefs in the process of loving everybody.
So an example for that would be, for instance, what are healthy compromises to do that are not compromising my own personal integrity and my own personal values? Some of the places that we frequent. Maybe a friend wants to meet up at a place that I would love to meet you, but you know what, sis, I don't want to go to that place. I'm not going to go to that bar. I just don't want to be in that environment. I am not have any issues with alcohol or anything, but there's a lot of people that do. I personally choose not to be in that environment, because I don't like the environment I don't like the way that spirit feels around that, the spirit of those environments. Maybe there's, hey, can we meet up at the park? Can we go for a walk outside? Can we, hey, why don't you come over here for dinner? And there's so many other ways we can compromise and still spend time together. There's a lot of things. We just had gone, one of our friends got married. And that was a perfect example of, I don't know where this tradition came from. I actually despise this tradition. I don't think there's anything healthy about this tradition. Is bachelor and bachelorette parties. I just don't know where it started, where it came from. I don't necessarily care to know. I just don't believe in it. I don't believe that this is a good way to support your friend who's getting married to be successful in their relationship. And then the night before their marriage, you're going to go out and whether it be males or females, be around other situations where there's a lot of alcohol involved and just really negative atmospheres. Right. And I just don't see the joy. I don't see the benefit from that in any aspect. I don't think that's healthy. Like, here, I'm here to support you. So my compromise is, I am here to support you, sis. I got you. I'll be one of your bridesmaids. I will walk you down the aisle, whatever those things are. But the reality is, I can't be there. And maybe even talk to him. I don't have to argue my point.
Right,
I just have to try and teach him
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, listen, I want you to be successful. It's not about this wedding. It's about this marriage. It's about a marriage of commitment. It's about a marriage of two people coming together and being the very best they can be, and not inviting foolishness into it. So why would you spend a whole night of foolishness? So there's so many other ways. We can all go out to dinner.
Yeah.
We can all have a wonderful time.
Yeah.
Let's all go out to dinner and celebrate our friendships and celebrate unity and celebrate the parts of you leaving behind the single life and what that means. But in no way does that mean I need to go and have a lap dance by some other person.
Right.
In any way while I'm consuming alcohol. I just don't see the benefit in that. So explaining that and maybe viewing it in a different aspect. And, as we get older, we see it, but not just automatically and blindly following traditions that honestly, if you stop to think, make no sense and are not healthy.
Yeah. And you said it perfectly, babe, because I'm like, why would you get drunk out of your mind and going to watch this person strip off their clothes right before the day you're about to get married? That makes absolutely no sense. Don't know where we got that tradition from. But that's a big one, man, because if you go into it saying, this is my last night of freedom, got that. And it's not even so much last night of freedom. What the marriage ought to do is embellish your freedom, because you get a chance to now be the best that you can possibly be in this relationship. And that person can see some of the things that you need to cut back on and some of the things that you need to be encouraged to do more of. So it could be that's the part of the freedom that's beautiful in the marriage. But why would you just totally just almost ruin your marriage night by going to do this stupid stuff the night before? So it absolutely makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's part of, we need to be prepared to defend and teach, not argue. We don't need to argue our point in it being right or wrong. It's just what and why we will not compromise. What we're not going to be willing to compromise, and why we're not willing to compromise those things. And to recognize that other people or these kind of events, they're not responsible for us making bad choices. I'm not going to blindly go places. I have my own personal integrity. I have my own personal opinion, and I have my own personal boundaries. I choose to not go to these places because I know what it could cause, and I'm not inviting any of those things into my life. That's not how I want to begin a marriage. I'm not going to begin a job by going and getting drunk the night before. How much sense does that make?
Yeah.
Absolutely none. And people don't think that way. If I have to go to have surgery, I'm not going to go to all you can eat buffet the night before. Like, there's just certain things that people don't realize how foolish one thing sounds until you start putting it in a different situation and start recognizing those things. If I have problem with food, I'm not going to go to an all you can eat buffet. Maybe I just had a gastric bypass and I shouldn't be eating that much. Those are compromises. Yes, I want to have dinner with you. Absolutely. Can we go this place instead? Explain why. Explain what you can eat. Explain why you can't go there. It's really simple. It doesn't take a lot. And I don't know why we can't articulate and explain and communicate. And we need to be able to, again, ensure our commitment in relationship is important to us, but be able to articulate the whys and the why nots.
I think something that's really cool is a lot of times we don't realize this, but the way you introduce yourself to people and the way you treat yourself is a great way to teach people how to treat you, where you don't have to even be tempted into compromise in the first place. And that's the one thing I love about life where it is right now, because there's a lot of things that people, should know up front about you when they first meet you, is that this is what I stand for. This is what I believe, and I will not compromise my beliefs on that, and I just, use the job because I'm a 40-hour a week person, and that's it, man. You're going to get 40 hours a week out of me. I'm going to give you all I got during those 40 hours. But when I put my key in ignition, I'll be like, what's the name of this place again where I work at again? Because once I put that key in ignition, I drive off that property, I'm done. And there's no compromising of that, with my work. And I make sure of that, that the people that I work with would know that, because I love the time that I'm at work. I get a chance to minister and be a blessing and serve those people in that community. But man, when I'm gone, man, I love being alone with my queen and being alone with myself to have that time. So I will not compromise those things.
Some of the ways that maybe we can maintain and able to define and therefore cultivate what we compromise and what we were not willing to compromise is, again, going back to our boundaries, right? Our level of commitment to ourself and our well-being. So what are some of the things that maybe we can do to help maintain and cultivate our boundaries within ourselves? And for myself, I love to meditate. I love to sit. Personally, I love to sit outside. Again, if it's 15 minutes, you can go as long as you can. Some days, maybe 45 minutes. And I love to earth. I earth every day if possible. Some days are not possible, but as much as it is possible for me is meditation. I highly recommend it. Whether you meditate on God's word, whether you meditate on just the quietness, when you put some music. I love frequency meditation, and just sit. And maybe you have mantras. Maybe you have prayers that you pray. Maybe you have things that you do to encourage yourself. But you have to know, again, to cultivate yourself, your own boundaries. Know where your boundaries, know what your limitations are, know what you're willing to commit to, and to be able to express that, explain it, and teach it without arguing. And then you decide, you can make better choices once you have chosen to spend a few minutes with yourself. And to meditate and check in on you. Again, we want others to show up for us. We can't compromise in relationships if they're not willing. They want us to show up, and we need to show up for us first before we're willing to show up for everybody else first. So meditation will help us get stable, get to a place, do your morning prayer, whatever that is for you. It might look like sitting at the coffee table with a cup of coffee. For me, it's sitting outside with my feet in the dirt. For others, it might be on a yoga mat. For others, it might be a prayer walk. I used to do prayer walking. And whatever that is for you, figure that out. Get back into touch with yourself. Figure out where you are, what your limitations are, so you're able to make better choices as the day progresses.
And that is one of the greatest commandments in the Word of God, is to make sure that you love God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul, and then to love others as you love yourself. So a lot of the compromise that we have with ourselves ends up being compromising in our relationship. So the one thing that we want to do is make sure we're true to ourselves and not to compromise, our beliefs. Some of the things that I love with my baby is there are certain things, like she said, she does her earthing and being in the Word and praying and all of those things. And then vice versa for me, I love to spend at least 1 hour with the Lord in the morning, prayer, meditation, whether it's fasting, getting in the Word. So it's always those things. And then another hour of just stretching, man. I love to stretch. I love to do some kind of, calisthenics. And those are the things that we each have in our own lives that sets us up to have a great day. So anytime we're compromising our own integrity, our own beliefs, and our own system of how we operate at our best, when we compromise that, we end up going to more than likely compromise the relationships that we're being involved in.
Definitely noticed on those mornings when maybe you forgot that we have to be somewhere, and I'm like, babe, we have to go somewhere, and you're in the middle of possibly getting your stretch on. Normally, I know that your hour, and that's part of commitment, right? My commitment to you is knowing your boundaries, knowing your limitations, knowing that this is something that you need for you to be your best and to feel your best, and vice versa. But sometimes we don't get those in. Sometimes we wake up late, or sometimes we're running, or there's circumstances out of our control, weather, whatever those things may be. And you're right, we're not our best. So we just have to recognize, just get back in touch, take a step back, and take a deep breath, and start again.
Because one of the things I had to learn during COVID, because I had made a vow to myself to always work out and take care of my body. So when I say that, how I defined it in my head was always being at the gym. That was huge for me. Still to this day, I thank God for the last 37 years that I've committed of taking care of myself. I really thought when I said take care of myself, I didn't realize that I would literally mean going to the gym. So when COVID happened, I literally had to change up my whole routine, to be at home, to, like I said, do more stretching, do more calisthenics. I even bought some little free weights, but that's how it looked in my mind. I had to compromise of saying, you know what, John, you're still working out, still doing what you're doing, but it's not going to be at the gym. I even passed out back in October. I think it was, no, not October. I think it was August of last year, working out with my brother-in-law, and just end up passing out. And I'm like, okay, John, it's not the way it has to be how you did when you were younger. Bro, you ain't no 25 no more. You 55. So you got to compromise the way you look at working out. You still taking care of your body, and you're still doing the things that you're doing to make yourself healthy, but it does not look like it did when you were in your 20s. So that's one of the things. Sometimes we have to compromise with ourselves and make some adjustments that we didn't, realize we was going to have to make. But once again, as you're getting older, you cannot do the things that you used to do. So you can still do what you did, but you just have to compromise the way you used to do it. And that's not a bad thing.
And I love that you said that, because again, what is the definition of compromise? To compromise is to make a deal between different parties where each party gives up a part of their demand. But sometimes different parties are us in our 20s and us now in our 50s.
Good call.
We're the same person, but that's a different person.
Yeah.
That's a completely different person. And for those who don't understand that, just keep living, baby. Just keep living, and you'll start understanding. Even if you're in your 30s, now you start realizing you're a little bit more tired than you were in your 20s. Mm-hmm. And the things continue to evolve. So even changing and compromising some of the things that we do and the way that we do them. I know that you were willing to compromise the way you ate when we first met. That was a compromise for you. That was a huge compromise. You were a huge meat, deep fried kind of guy.
That's right.
Tacos every night if it was up to you. Mm-hmm. Meat every night if it was up to you. If there was meat on the plate, it wasn't a meal. And
that's right.
I didn't eat meat for years. It was 5 years I was vegan, and it was just learning different ways that you were still getting your protein in, but you were willing to change.
Yeah.
But those are things that after you sat and you thought, you were willing to open your mind to realize it's more beneficial to my own health.
Yeah.
And then becoming pescatarian and learning, we started eating more fish, and it's just learning what are better ways to take care of our health. We're still going to eat. Now, we didn't miss a meal. Yeah, we haven't missed a meal yet, and we still are able to go to restaurants, but we are being so intentional about the things that we are consuming to fuel our bodies, because again, different seasons have different demands on our body. And as we get older, we want to be more intentional. Mm-hmm. As we're in Tucson, we know it doesn't take too much before you're dehydrated. If you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. Mm-hmm. So that we have to learn how to compromise. Compromise is not, okay, I'll drink 3 sodas instead of 5. No, it's I'll drink 3 waters and 2 sodas. Maybe compromising the way we're doing. Compromise is not always negative. It could be it should be beneficial to both parties. But on that example, that was a huge compromise. Mm-hmm. The way we love to go camping, I can't tell you. I grew up camping, and we would, me and my family grew. I'm first generation in the States, and we had a Volkswagen bus, and we used to have vacations every summer. Mm-hmm. Didn't have a lot of money, but we drove. So we're in New York, and we would drive different years. We drive anywhere from all the way to Canada to drive all the way to Key West. We would sleep in the van. 5 of us would sleep in the van. We would park behind 24-hour diners, and we would pee in a bucket. And we hated every second of that. And we would get, here's a rag, go into the diner and wash up. And we'd be like so mortified as kids. But you know what? We went to the campsites, and we would have just the time of our life. I would just love running with frogs and catching, and barefoot everywhere. I would be barefoot literally for like months at a time. And some restaurants wouldn't let me in the door because I was just
no shoes,
barefoot.
No shirt, no service.
I was just a Mowgli growing up. I was just Mowgli. I was always barefoot, and I still am. But that's my way of vacationing. And when I was a single mom with my kids, I didn't have a lot of money. I had a truck, and we would throw the kids in the back of the truck. Me and my dog, we'd throw the kids in the back of the truck. All 3 of us would go, and we'd go to Sedona almost every weekend. We'd go to the mountains. We'd go all over the place. Mm-hmm. And my kids probably hated most of it. They could smell each other's feet. Somebody was touching them. The air was too thin. I mean, you line up but you know what? We had vacations. Mm-hmm. Just like when I was a kid, we had vacation. We compromised our comfort maybe for an experience. Mm-hmm. for memories that were fantastic. And there I go and marry this beautiful, amazing husband who has never camped a day in his life. In his life. And I'll let you tell the rest of that.
Oh, man. So we have currently right now been married for 13 years. God bless my beautiful queen, because she had to compromise her idea of camping. I had to compromise my idea of camping. So for 10 years, she have always wanted us to get like something like an RV, you know. I mean, she just wanted us to go camping. And me being born and raised in Flint, Michigan, man, it was always about running them streets, doing our little things, what we was doing. And camping was the furthest thing from my mind. So let's jump back into our marriage. So at the age, let me see, I think it was like 5 years ago, my beautiful baby had to have 2 tumors removed out of her brain. And that shook our world all the way up. Shook it all the way up. So come back around to 2 years ago. So my baby was like, babe, you know, I still want to do this camping thing. And I was like, babe, okay, we gonna do it. But it's going to have to be, we're going to have to make it look a whole lot different than I'm used to being, because your boy ain't trying to be outside with all them bugs and mosquitoes and all that. And I'm like, oh, babe, I can't see it. So then here we go, starting to go to RV, what was those things like?
The RV shows.
RV shows, yeah.
And it's just your idea of camping was so not even in the same genre.
Yeah.
Like you weren't even there because you never camped.
Right.
But
just the thought of it, of how I thought it was gonna look, man. Tents outside with the smoke in the bar. I'm like, man, I ain't feeling this. So here we go, starting to look at campers. So now I want you to put this in your minds, because this size difference makes a difference. So my beautiful queen is 5 feet and 3/4, you know, so she got to throw that 3/4 up in there. And I am 6'4". So major height difference there. So when we first started looking at RVs, y'all know what I was looking at. Class A, them big mama jammas. Class C was the smallest. I was like, okay, we can't go smaller than this, because I got to be able to stand in the RV. That was always my idea of what the RV was supposed to be about. And then my baby got to looking at these other RVs. Campers. Yeah. Class Bs. Yes. I'm like, man, if you know what a Class B is. So for those who don't know what a Class B is.
An A is those big buses.
Yeah.
An A is a bus. Yeah. It's like a school bus size, if not bigger. Yeah, those are those big, huge, tour buses almost, like the Greyhounds. That's a Class A. They're ginormous. You got to have like a certain license to even drive those.
Drive that thing.
Yeah.
Then Class C's are some nice. They usually start off around about 28
feet, maybe.
28, yeah. I don't know. 23, 28 feet. They pretty big, and plus I can stand in them.
And the fifth wheels are different. Those are the ones that you have to attach to a truck. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the B's, doesn't make sense that A is giant. B is a camper van, so like a VW bus. Think of like the Winnebagos, Westphalias. Those are campers, like the old-fashioned hippies. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So then, every time we walked into an RV show, usually the first vans you see at an RV show are Class Bs, because they start from the small ones and then they just show you a bigger one. So anytime we walked into an RV show, I walked immediately past the Class Bs. I wasn't even remotely trying to look at them RV. I'm like, I got to be able to stand up in this joint. But as we continue to look at more and more RVs, we continue to look at our price, continue to look at, what we needed it for. And then here we go, more and more leaning towards my baby's idea, and really both our ideas of camping. And that made a major difference in our life, because we almost, if we could, every weekend we'd be gone. And I never thought in a million years I would be doing that. But one of the healthy compromises is we were able to get a van, a RV. So that was part of my glamping, compromise with camping versus being out the way, she grew up camping. Yes. Major difference.
In Flint, Michigan, every chance we get, we go camping. So
Yes,
my
indeed.
baby's finally come over to my hippie
Yes, I
side.
have.
Yes. And that's a compromise. And for both of us, And part of that was forced upon due to my disability.
Yeah.
Because I was no longer able to set up camp. Like I would in the past. I think one time you came camping with me. I took all the kids. We had like 8 kids. And I set everything up because nobody knew how to do it. And you had no idea. So a van is simple. We did the simplest, easiest for both of us. I'm able to get in and out easy. The wheelchair fits. It pops up top. Just we can sleep 4 people in it. It has everything. And Pleasure Way, Tofino. I love that brand. We love that van, and we did our homework. So that was that's one of the biggest compromises we've done, and it took 10 years of patience and prayers waiting for my baby to realize the joy in camping. And now he sees the benefit and the joy and the investment. You know, a lot of people think that more means more money, more stuff, bigger. And that's not always necessarily the truth. It's compromising quality over quantity. And to have more doesn't necessarily mean you have to accumulate more stuff.
Yeah.
And we've had the joy now of compromising. Both of us have compromised to a point where we both ended up realizing the benefit of it, and we're both gaining and basking in the benefit of spending time unplugged from everything. We actually we go places where there is no service, and that's intentional because otherwise we'd be on our phones playing games. So it's a beautiful thing, and that's a huge compromise that's one of our biggest compromises that we've had in our marriage. Everything, the other ones, you're always going to have compromises, whether it be at work, with having to work overtime and your commitments to your home, whether it be with friends and the places that everybody wants to go, whether it be in the clothes that you wear and what's expected for you to wear at certain locations. I mean, there's always compromise, but never compromise your values, never compromise your integrity, never compromise the Word of God, and never compromise your relationship to get your way.
Yeah, because healthy compromise is when it benefits both individuals to become holy and healthy. So there's some great examples of godly compromises. This is when both parties continue to communicate during disagreements, because you're going to have that, even though it is challenging for both of you to open up and be honest. And whether that's through parents or family or children or employer, you have to make sure you work through the disagreement that you're having, because we're always going to have disagreements, man. Like I said, make sure you stop getting to the point where you're disagreeing with yourself. You're mentally knowing what you're doing, but your heart is doing something else. I mentally know I shouldn't do drugs and alcohol. I'm verbally saying I shouldn't do drugs and alcohol, but guess what? In the heart of the people that I work with, that heart continues to go and do the drugs and alcohol. So getting to the point where you don't have that disagreement within yourself, to actually line up your head, your mouth, and your heart to be in one accord, to stop having those disagreements, those compromises within yourself, because we will never live our fullest life if we're constantly compromising ourselves and our relationships, sometimes with God and with other people.
So how can we not do that? Is to encourage each other. Not only to, I encourage us to maintain healthy boundaries for ourselves and continue to commit to ourselves and know what you're not willing to compromise, but encourage each other to take better care of their own mind, their own body, their spirit. I'm always going to say to people, find what makes your heart breathe. Where can you feel your best? Thich Nhat Hanh, this little guy, he's like a Vietnamese monk, and I love his quote. It says, "Love people so they feel free." And I want to live my life I want to feel free, Jesus died. He died for us to be free. Well, don't get entangled again into the same things that keep us bound. Don't entangle yourself. We make choices. And sometimes failure to make those choices and maintain our boundaries are failure to know yourself.
Yeah.
So if we don't want to make bad compromises that compromise our own health, our own integrity, our own values, we have to advocate for ourselves. We have to know ourselves. We have to go back to who am I, know my value, know my purpose. Meditate, spend time with you so you can be ready for that day. So you can be ready to face some of those hard questions that you're going to be faced with, some of those choices, some of those places that we might have to go into, but to continue to encourage one another so we don't compromise some of those things that matter. We do not compromise our meditation. We do not compromise our accountability to one another. We do not compromise healthy relationships.
Yeah.
We do not compromise getting our exercise in. Maybe that just means walking around the house a few times.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like for me, walking around the kitchen, in the living room. Do not compromise healthy eating. Maybe I ate a bigger piece of cake than I did my dinner. That's okay. Maybe the next meal will be better. But I'm not going to just give up on myself or just start tearing myself down. I'm just going to continue. But it's really about less unfruitful time and more fruitful time. Things that nourish me. I'm not going to compromise doing things that in my insides are screaming, I don't want to be here. Somebody made a really cute t-shirt and I love it. And it says, sorry, I'm late. I didn't want to be here. And it's so funny. And people think it's so rude. But the reality is if we are able to articulate and we can be better about communicating our needs, our commitments, and our boundaries, we wouldn't have to compromise our own integrity to be places and with people that we don't have any intention or want to even be there. Yeah,
I think something that we have to be careful of is if you're constantly a yes person, it's hard for you to tell people no. Mm-hmm. And if people see that you are a person that loves to be committed to something, they will continue to call on you time and time and time and time again because they know you're going to be faithful. If you're moving, people will call on you, especially if you got a truck. They will continue to call on you to help them move every weekend, and you're supposed to be available to them, to be able to move. If you're not careful, people will call you into, like I said, doing overtime, whether it's being committed to some kind of charity, and you love the charity, but you just don't have the time to be committed to it, whether it's being part of the PTA or some organization, being on their board of advisors or whatever it may be. If you're a person that are constantly saying yes, people will continue to constantly call you until you tell them, you know what, I'm getting to the point where I don't want to be resentful towards people. So I've got to start telling people no when I know deep down I really didn't want to be a part of that event, that organization, that the many things that you can be a part of. We have to get to the point where we stop overcommitting and compromising our values, our strength, our energy, our love, our money towards things that we really don't have a heart to do. Guess what? If we could, and my wife would tell you, and that's both of us, we would give our energy, time, and money to everything and anything that's going to be a blessing to get people closer to God, for them to have a more fulfilling life. But then at the same time, we've got to make sure that we're not compromising our marriage in order to do other things that's going to disintegrate, the kind of relationship that we want to have, because we want to have a prosperous marriage to the day we die. I mean, we want to constantly continue to grow, continue to build each other up, and part of doing that might have to be a compromise, but it's also compromises that will make our relationship better, to bring us closer to each other and closer to God.
Amen. And so 2 things I'd like to leave you with. One, opportunity does not equal obligation.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we are so obligated and we feel so pressured because we love the people, we believe in the event, we believe in the foundation of what they're doing. We believe in it. Yeah. But just because we have an opportunity to do something, it does not mean we are obligated to do it. So just like my babe was saying, like, we have to be careful because we might get called on to do certain things, and we are definitely, our heart is, absolutely, I am there. Mm-hmm. But we also realize we've committed to, just like we just talked about the camper. We just talked about her, we've named her Azaria. Azaria means God helps, and we've named our van Azaria, and we committed to that because having her gives us the opportunity to have more time away, and we have committed to that. And she is a reminder to us every day when we see her, every day that we see her parked out there. And another thing I'd like to leave you with is the calendar. Number 2, use your calendar. Everyone has a cell phone. Almost everybody has a cell phone. Use your calendar.
Yeah.
Put yourself in your calendar. Schedule yourself in your calendar. Schedule your meditation time in the morning. Schedule your wake up time that you want to wake up. Schedule your time to eat yourself a healthy breakfast, even if it's just a cup of coffee. Schedule a break in the afternoon to go and sit back. If maybe you want an afternoon meditation because people are driving you nuts at work. Maybe you need a 2 to 2:15 break. Take your time.
Yeah.
Even if that is just going and sitting on the toilet, I don't care what people think. Take your time and don't make anything within those schedule and say, when people call you, be like, let me look at my calendar, and schedule yourself in there. You are worth the time. Commit yourself to yourself and follow and keep those boundaries to yourself so you don't compromise and you don't overlap and you don't start dismissing yourself, because you are the first person that you will dismiss.
Amen. So it says in 1 Thessalonians 5:11, therefore comfort each other and edify one another, just as you also are doing. It is important that as much as we make sure we're taking care of ourselves, we try to make sure we put that wonderful balance over there. Taking care of yourself. Make sure you're not compromising your own values and beliefs and becoming the person that you want to be, but also making sure you're not compromising your relationships, building people up and encouraging them. And encouraging restoration and time with family members, even though it's scary, it is a big one, man. Because sometimes, man, trying to remend relationships, there's going to definitely have to be some compromise up in there. Because if there's been some horrifying events that have taken place, and sometimes you can't rectify. Let's just be honest. You have to be at peace with if it's somebody that I love that passed away and there is no way to bring that back. I've got to compromise myself and say, you know what? I got to let this go. I got to let this harboring of bitterness and anger, that I got to let this go, man, because it's too hard on me not to be everything I'm supposed to be. It also says in Romans chapter 14, verse 19, so then make it your top priority to live a life of peace with harmony in your relationships, eagerly seeking to strengthen and encourage one another. Part of that is building people up, lifting them up, encouraging them, not compromising your values in the process, but also, guess what? Loving on people, man. Because everybody in this world, if you don't know nothing else about people, they need 2 things. They need to be loved and they need to love. But in the process of loving yourself, don't compromise yourself. Don't compromise you trying to be in relationships that's going to build you up and be the best that you can be. And don't compromise your relationship with God, man. God has so much in store for you. He wants the absolute best for you. But how many times have we compromised what he's asked us to do for other people? And what ended up happening with that? What happened with that? Well, my love, my sweet, love you. Is there any closing words you would have?
I gave my closing recommendations. Make time for yourself. Right. Schedule you. Yeah. Schedule you. Write it in the calendar. And you're more likely to keep your boundaries. And that will help prevent you from making unhealthy compromises that take away from you and your life and your schedule and your needs.
Amen. Love you guys. Continue to do the best that you can be, and don't just listen to this for information. Apply it to your lives so you can be successful. We love you. God bless.